Bellino will kick it high but short, and it will bounce out the 23 on the far side. Picked up, and he's breaking through the line. And he's through the line. That'll be down to the 40, to the 50. He's going down to the 30, 20, 10, 5. Touchdown, Zach Juszczyk.
Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Meyers.
And we welcome you into another edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday at 7 p.m. right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Sean Meyers joined by Dan Flickinger. And Flick, we have another exciting show. We got a lot to get to. The Week 5 scores and top performers. We'll run down all of the Westmoreland County games. The always popular plays of the week segment. We've got some really good interviews. Marko Thomas, the head man of Greensburg Central Catholic, coming off of maybe the biggest win that program has had in decades. Also, Devin Beattie, who had a terrific performance for the Burrell Buccaneers. He has been an absolute workhorse all season long. He is our player of the week. We'll hear from him. And a look ahead at the Week 6 preview a little bit later on. But have to look at some of the big stories. I already said Marko Thomas and GCC. And man, the Centurions came up big. They knock off, I think, the team that everyone looks as the team to beat in Class 1A. That is the Clairton Bears. GCC winning that one 34-18 at home. They get some revenge after they came so close in previous years. And it really feels like this has been building. We talked about how talented the roster was. They needed to go out and get a statement win like this, and they certainly did.
Gigantic. And Marko Thomas said after the game, this is the biggest win of my life. And yeah, I know he didn't have a ton of success at Connellsville, but it just goes to show the type of victory this is for him and the team. First time since 2001, Greensburg Central Catholic upends Clairton, and they did it in a really pretty exciting way with some really big plays. And I think they flashed, Sean, their weaponry with Tyree Turner putting up some big numbers, but certainly he wasn't the only one. And I think the fact that Greensburg Central Catholic got on the board so quickly, and I think one of the kids said this after the game, it kind of gave them confidence, even though Clairton kept answering back in the first half. It gave them confidence that are like, hey, we are on even footing with this team. We can beat this team. So I thought it was really a great opportunity for Greensburg Central Catholic to make that mental hurdle over a team that certainly they may see down the road again. But I mean, that night on Friday night was certainly a memorable one for those kids. And it had Clairton a little bit rattled. I saw that Wayne Wade said no comment after the game.
That's not the first time for him, I'll say.
Right,
that.
I understand. And I know he got in some hot water in the past with some things. So maybe it was best to just say no comment. But
they created that cool down rule. Do you remember that's sort of gone by the wayside?
It was after him, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
although I like Wayne, I've always had good conversations with them. But yeah. I'll say this: when you're a head coach at Clairton football and you lose a game, maybe it does kind of feel like the end of the world sometimes. They're not used to losing. I'll say that much. Yeah, no doubt about it. I know he's done so much for that program, but and they're not used to losing. So, but looking at the weaponry again, Sean, I mean, Jaden Kennedy, DeJean Craggett, Tyree Turner, just mentioned him. Samir Crosby had another interception. And I thought Amari Mack, who's been maybe a little bit quiet this year offensively, really got on track. I know he had a touchdown and he also made interception on defense. So, the list goes on and on when you talk about GCC and the weapons that they have. We saw them battle Bishop Canevin earlier in the year. We broadcast the game. It was on a Saturday. And I thought in that game, even though the final score was what it was, and that was Bishop Canevin winning by a couple of touchdowns, if GCC doesn't shoot themselves in the foot with a few penalties in the first half, I think maybe the second half is a little bit different in that game. So, I think it was great that they were able to have a big matchup like that early. It got them ready for a Clairton and some playoff games down the line. Maybe GCC sees Bishop Canevin again. But, man, this was just a huge win, and I'm sure those kids are really excited still. Yeah, and you mentioned 5 of their big-time playmakers, and I think the other one in there is Nate DeLugos, and we just had him with his commitment recently on our Recruiting Thursday. So, really, I don't know that there's many teams in 6A or 5A that can realistically say we have 6 skilled guys who can win a game at any given time. And GCC has that. Now it's still, you have to, play good defense, which has been a little bit of an issue at times. They've given up some points. Obviously, they did much better against Clareton. You need to win in the trenches, and they have guys like Kimmel, who obviously are very experienced and talented in that regard. But there are very few teams, regardless of classification, that can match up with their skill.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And again, when you have that many skilled guys, and ironically, I don't mean to draw the comparison to Jeanette, considering some of the kids we're talking about are Jeanette kids, but I guess I am right now, because Jeanette has had that for so long in single A and double A. And I'm not saying that they haven't had talent up front, but they always have those skilled guys that could excel at any other level on, Jeanette. And ironically, some of those kids are the same kids that are at GCC, but the Centurions, I mean, they have those skilled guys, and in a single A that can really take you a long way. And I think GCC has proven that. Now, I don't think it's fair to say that against Clareton, because, talking about taking you a long way because of the opponents you face, Clareton's a really good team year after year. So they're one of those opponents that it's going to be tough to match up against. But GCC, with all the talent, they're able to do that this year and able to come out with a big win.
In my head, I was thinking, do we cover any other teams that you could really say have like 6 players that dynamic at the skill positions? And I immediately thought Hempfield area.
Yeah,
because
right.
They have Phillips, they have Caesar, they have Tufts. They have a really good tight end in Villano and
Tonka and Benakonski.
Yeah, so I think that you can maybe make the argument, but none of those players really came through for the Spartans on Friday. It was a shocking outcome. I could not believe when I was getting score updates, it was 53-0 Gateway at the half, 60-7 the Gators just dominate Hempfield area. And the game was at Hempfield area. An unbelievably shocking outcome. The good news, if you're looking for any for Hempfield area, it's just one loss. It's their first loss of the season. And now maybe they see, as good as we've been, we still have more work to do. But man, I could not believe that. It had to be a stunned silence there at Hempfield area.
It was. I was shocked as well. I'm kind of speechless right now. The one point that I thought Tim McCabe, who does a fantastic job, he usually does our Norwin color for the broadcast. But because you and Dave Franzak were combined this week for PT Norwin, Tim was the color analyst for the Hempfield Gateway game with Jack Ridenauer. And I thought it was interesting. He mentioned this a few times, just like you mentioned, Sean, like this is going to sting, obviously, but when Hempfield gets up tomorrow morning, they're 5-1. And that's the thing that they have to keep in mind. Like there are still huge games down the road. They still have they're still in the driver's seat to get a playoff spot right now. So I think that that's something that I'm sure Mike Brown and the coaching staff was making sure they kept in mind. Like, hey, it was a very lopsided loss, but let's learn some things from it. And the fact that, hey, it's still just one loss. We're still having a terrific season. We still have a great opportunity, but Gateway wanted to make a statement in that game. No doubt about it. If you go back and watch it, they were running trick plays. Birch was dropping dimes. I mean, he looked tremendous and probably the best he's looked all year. And I go back and think, I know that he was banged up when he played in that game against Franklin Regional, and I understand he didn't play the entire game, but there is no way he looked that good against Franklin Regional and Gateway lost. I know that for a fact. And I went back and watched both games. I mean, the throws that he was making, Sean, hitting receivers in stride. I mean, it's one thing to get the receivers open, but you certainly got to get the ball there. And Birch was just dropping ball. There was actually one play last week that the Gateway receiver dropped a pass in the end zone. It was pretty good coverage, but Birch was running out to his right and threw back across his body. I don't know, maybe 30 yards in the air and dropped it right in the kid's hands. And I think maybe the Hempfield defender was there too. So, but anyway, he dropped the ball, but that may have been his best pass all night. I mean, he was tremendous. So I'm willing to bet that he's been dealing with some injury issues and he was pretty healthy last week because again, I mean, Gateway, they look like the Harlem Globetrotters of football, really. I mean, they were just, I think they wanted to make a statement like, hey, everyone's forgetting about us. Well, we're not forgotten about anymore.
There's a lot to unpack here. And we've talked about Hempfield area so many times because they've had such an incredible season. But let's be honest, losing in lopsided fashion is something that a lot of these players have dealt with before. So it's not new to them because so many of them were around last year when they went winless in the 6A conference. We'll see how they bounce back. And it's interesting because they have a non-conference this week. And I'm wondering, is it better to have that non-conference against a really good Seneca Valley team? Or would you rather get back in conference play and get a win potentially? But we'll see how Coach Brown and his crew approach it, because they have not faced adversity really like this season. Here's the other aspect of it. You can realistically say on any Friday night in the 5A Big East Conference, you have no clue what's going to happen in the 3 games. No clue.
Well, look at Penn Trafford Norwood. It was close at halftime, was it not?
It was a 7-0 game until the final 15 seconds or so of the first half.
Yeah, there you go. And Sean, I wanted to add too, it might be better that this week is a non-conference game for Hempfield, because Jake Phillips was injured in the first half against Gateway, didn't play in the second half. And man, I got to credit that kid, because he was injured and he was trying to play through it. I mean, you could see him. I think after he was injured, he made a run and got hit and went to the ground, and he was holding his arm, going back to the huddle. He was looking what Hempfield does, they may line up in shotgun and then fake the snap and then look to the sideline. As he was doing that, I mean, he was holding his arm. So he really tried to gut it out. I thought it was a good decision by Mike just to get him out of the game at that point. It was so lopsided. I guess I shouldn't say this. I don't know for sure, but a non-conference game, I don't know that he plays this week. Maybe they get him ready for the next conference game.
Well, talking about that same conference, Franklin Regional now alone in first place because they get a come-from-behind win against the Plum Mustangs, and it was not easy. It needed some heroics in the second half. 31-28, the Panthers hold on over the Mustangs. So Franklin Regional 3-2 overall, and yet, as I mentioned, they're in first place. It's you keep wondering, is the bubble going to burst? And it hasn't to this point. Remember, they beat that same Gateway team. Now they do have more tests upcoming. They're going to have to see Hempfield area. They're going to have to see Penn Trafford. But right now, you can't ask for any more if you're Coach Getsy than your team winning its conference games.
And they're doing it. And they're doing it in they did it in comeback fashion last week. That's for sure. Aiden Hudock, man. I don't know that he's a household name yet, but he certainly needs to be, because he is a very exciting player, and
he's
not
electric.
Only,
some would say
he is electric. See, I said exciting that way I wouldn't have to steal any thunder there from Jonathan. But it wasn't only Hudock in this game. It was Zach Buska who really had maybe the play of the game with the 82-yard kick return
where they avoided kicking it to Hudock.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who do you kick to? The Franklin Regional special teams. Coaches usually, I don't know. I feel like coaches are usually like upset about their special teams for whatever reason, or they can always get better, in special teams. But with Franklin Regional, I mean, if you're an opponent, who do you kick to there? You want to kick away from Buska, you have Hudock. If you want to kick away from Aiden, you have Zach. So the 82-yard kick return, Franklin Regional down 21-7 into the third quarter, opening kick of the second half. He returns it for a touchdown. And Sean, I mean, that momentum right back in Franklin Regional's favor. And, of course, our man Joey Bain, my boy, the sophomore, able to eventually his field goal eventually was the winner to give Franklin Regional that victory over your Plum Mustangs. But, I mean, it was just a huge couple of plays there, certainly. And Roman Sarnick, too, Sean. We saw him do this a few times this year, even though it was in a losing effort against Shaler. Another fourth down touchdown run for Roman Sarnick, who's just such a tough-nosed kid, really helping Franklin Regional win that game.
And so I'll say one thing about the Panthers. They didn't play week 0, so they have 5 games under their belt. 4 of them have really come down to the final minutes. And they created a little bit of separation against Gateway late, but that was a game where fourth quarter, you're still waiting to see the outcome be decided. They lost 2 games in double overtime, and then they had to hang on. And again, I say hang on. They did have the second half comeback, but ultimately fended off the Mustangs to win by 3. So I think that counts for something when you get to the playoffs, if they make it, or even to the end of the regular season when playoff spots are on the line and you're in a close game. The fact that they've been there before, they've come up short. Now they've gotten over the hump a couple of times as well. I think that counts for something.
And again, when you have a good field goal kicker, those extra points and field goals
as Penn Trafford
add
last
up
year
in those close games. So
Yeah. Nate Schlesinger is probably the reason why Penn Trafford has a state title. Absolutely. Not saying that the Panthers are going to get to that same thing, but kicking game can certainly be the difference. So Franklin Regional wins, Hempfield area falls, and PT knocks off Norwin. Another great night of action in the 5A Big East. We'll take a break, but we got plenty more to get to. It won't just be 5A Big East talk. We will run down all of the scores across Westmoreland County from week 5. And a little bit later on, the Plays of the Week segment, interviews with Marko Thomas of GCC and Devin Beattie of Burrell. And we'll also look ahead at the week 6 preview. We'll take a break and continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
At D'Annunzio's, our menu is extensive with an abundance of selections. The next best thing to being at one of our 3 locations is having our frozen food and jarred sauce in your own home. For our frozen food selections, we have wedding soup, pasta fagioli, lasagna, stuffed cheese rigatoni, ricotta cavatelli, and potato gnocchi. Our jarred sauces include the original, smooth, marinara, and tomato cream. These products can all be found at our restaurants or your local grocer.
We know speaking with your teen or your young adult about drugs and alcohol can be challenging, but is necessary. Remember to have a conversation, not a confrontation. Establish good communications, break through barriers, and be firm but loving. Here are some helpful tips. Choose a good place and time to chat. Talk with openness. Actively listen. Offer empathy and support. For more information, visit us online at wedacinc.org. Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission. Prevention is key.
We continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday, bringing you the best in high school football talk across Westmoreland County. Sean and Dan bringing you the action once again. We already talked about some of the biggest stories from the week 5 of the WPIAL regular season. I say this every week, but it feels like this season is just flying by. I think that's probably a good thing, but we're getting now to the back stretch. But before we look ahead at the week 6 preview, we got a lot more to get to in terms of wrapping up week 5. So let's look at the rest of the scores from this past week with Westmoreland County teams. We already talked about some of these. Gateway 60, Hempfield area 7. You can go back and watch that one. If you're a Spartans fan, it might be one where you just flush it and don't even ever think about that again. But that was one of our video broadcasts. You can also go back and watch Penn Trafford 28, Norwin 0. I had the call on that one. Penn Trafford had to fight and scratch and claw its way to that victory. I give a lot of credit to the Norwin defense and Jackson Pons with a couple of picks. The offense has struggled, back-to-back shutouts, but they are playing hard on the defensive side of the football, and Coach Brzezinski has to be very happy to see that. Also looking at the Week 5 scoreboard, Franklin Regional 31, Plum 28. We mentioned the Panthers pulling that one out. Mount Pleasant area 45, Greensburg-Salem 28 in the TJ DeStefano Bowl. So the Vikings go to 4-2. Greensburg-Salem now 3-3. TJ, I'm sure, was just picked up like he never left off, right? It's like riding a bike. Oh, for sure. Yeah, he didn't need the training wheels on, Sean. But I don't know if he was happy about that result or not. His alma mater lost, but a team that he's covered for a long time. Heck, I went to set up the equipment. And I met up with, by the way, give a shout out to Tom Hadzima, the old Mount Pleasant baseball coach, who is now, by the way, helping Craig Spisak coach at Norwin baseball. But Huds is a great guy. He was helping me set up, and he was like, "Oh, TJ is going to be here. I remember TJ." So he was like, coming in there and kissing babies. And tell you what, he's a very popular guy there. But I'll tell you who a couple of other popular guys, Sean. Lane Gulkowski, who had a gigantic game. Robbie Labuda, also a huge game on the ground. Man, that dual threat in the backfield was on display for Mount Pleasant. Yeah, it's one of those things that, and we're going to see in Plays of the Week a little bit later, the offense has always been built on kind of the deception and having multiple options to carry the football. So as good as Labuda has been, you get to the point where every now and then the defense expects Labuda to get the ball, and you can trick them. And I think Gulkowski was able to do that. And I don't want to take away, because there's probably some plays where you could flat out tell the defense we're giving it to Lane Gulkowski, and he was still going to do his job. He put up a big performance. And so when you have both of them clicking, and I do think the offense in terms of the passing is a little bit better than some years. Cole Chatfield's been really good, and Reese has been a valuable receiver. That they, again, we've talked about it. Their offense with that one off week against Freeport, man, they could put up some points.
Yeah, and again, that was disappointing, and I'm sure it was even more disappointing to the kids and the coaching staff the way that they performed offensively against Freeport, even though Labuda did get his yardage. But, going into this game, Sean, I thought that Mount Pleasant was probably the better team because they are very veteran this year, especially compared to Greensburg-Salem. A lot of young kids on the Greensburg-Salem side, but you can't disregard the Cody Rubrecht factor. And he certainly was a factor in the game. I mean, he put up his yardage, he threw for 172, ran for 148, and scored a bunch of touchdowns. But I guess the key to beating Greensburg-Salem is kind of, even though he's, let him get his yards, try not to allow him to make big plays and then score. And that's what Mount Pleasant did against the Golden Lions.
And I'm not sure what happened with him, but I don't think he finished that game for Greensburg-Salem. So that certainly would be healthy. Concerning. Yeah, hope that he's okay, because he's not just their quarterback. He really has done everything over his tenure at Greensburg-Salem. So they cannot afford to lose. And that was, by the way, the conference opener for those teams. That 3A, it took a long time to get to the conference game. So Mount Pleasant now 1-0, Greensburg-Salem 0-1 in conference play. Sarah Catholic just really dismantles Dairy area, 49-7 in favor of the Eagles. You can go back and listen to that one. Other games around Westmoreland County, Greater Latrobe gets back in the win column, 31-6, knocking off Trinity. John Wetzel had a really, really nice performance throwing the football, running the football, and now Robbie Fulton, all but one game, has gone over 100 yards on the ground this season. Indiana area defeats Kiski area, 47-28. Cavaliers remain winless at 0-6. Bell Vernon area blows up South Allegheny, the wrong South, 56-0. The Leopards.
Great conference.
Yeah. There's a lot of Souths in that conference. Just an incredible performance by the Leopards. And we were wondering, they played this very difficult non-conference. Would it parlay into success in the conference? Well, so far so good, because that was a dominant performance in their 3A opener. I think you could say the same for Elizabeth Forward, as the Warriors really just put up a dominant effort against Southmoreland. I got Southmoreland right this time, 42-6 in favor of EF. They are 6-0 now on the campaign. Some think they might be the team to beat in 3A.
And then I want to say, Sean, Bell Vernon and EF, I know it's still down the road here, but they face each other in the final game of the year. So both teams could certainly be on a collision course for that date.
Yeah, so you're looking at that one. That is maybe not just going to determine the conference champion. That could determine the number one seed and the heavy favorite heading into the postseason as well. A team that's opening some eyes in 3A is East Allegheny. Wildcats now 5-1 with their 38-14
Dom's
victory.
Pizza.
Yeah. Dom very happy to score that win over the Valley Vikings, as his team's looking like a contender as well. Dropping down to 2A, talk about contenders. The Burrell Buccaneers do it again. They are now 5-1 with a 42-30 victory over Amani Christian. That's a talented Amani team. Burrell, it's a no-frills offense. They come right at you. They run the football. We're going to hear from their star player, Devin Beattie, a little bit later. But, man, they continue to figure out a way. Everyone knows what's coming, and yet they can't stop it. Burrell continues to run the football with great success. Ligonier Valley 48, York 14 in a Westmoreland County showdown. The Rams now 4-2, the Cougars 2-4. We talked about it before. GCC 34, Clairton 18, as the Centurions improved to 4-2. Jeanette on a Saturday afternoon knocks off the Riverview Raiders 38-6. Jeanette getting its second win after they came up shy a couple times in heartbreaking fashion. And the Monessen Greyhounds put up 62 points in a 62-25 victory over West Green. Monessen now sitting pretty at 4-2. A college game from this past week, another tough one for the Seton Hill Griffins. They're now 0-5 in a 21-10 loss against Gannon. The Golden Knights improved to 4-1. Let's take a look at the top performers from week 5, top passer, rusher, and receiver in the WPIAL, as well as the top performers in Westmoreland County. And so first, let's look at the top passer. It is Jake Wolf of Montour as he goes 16 of 19 for 404 yards. And that is an incredible performance. That's far and away. Yeah, so Westmoreland County quarterbacks did pretty well, but no one came close to 404 yards for Jake Wolf.
You want me
the
to
top guy in Westmoreland County, there you go, howling like a wolf, one Dan Flickinger. Top guy in Westmoreland County was Tyree Turner, 246 yards through the air, and he did it with just 10 of 14 passing, so pretty impressive to see that from Turner. Peyton Moulter of Jeanette goes 4 of 5 for 192 yards. 172 yards for Cody Rubrick. We mentioned he suffered potentially an injury. Certainly did not finish that game out for Greensburg-Salem, but he did pass for 172 during his time out there. Roman Sarnik of Franklin Regional, 161, as he was 9 of 14 passing. Caden Kiefer of Southmoreland, 10 of 22 for 135. Conlon Green of Penn Trafford and John Wetzel of Greater Latrobe, each 132 yards passing. Green on 8 of 12 and Wetzel on 5 of 9. The top rusher happened to be not only in Westmoreland County, but across the WPIAL in Devin, Beattie, and Flick. This guy continues to do it. He puts up another monster performance. I know you're going to talk to him in a little bit, but what he's done, going over 300 yards this past week. It's one of those. We just did the Westmoreland alum Q&A with Justin Huss. Flashback to him because it felt like he was going over 300 yards. Now it's a guy like Beattie who's doing it again.
Well, and, Devin does it a little bit different than Justin did it. Justin would break the line of scrimmage and no one could catch him.
Track star.
He's a track star. But I'm not saying Beattie doesn't have speed, but 33 carries for over 300 yards. The work pail, lunchbox, whatever, hard hat, put the helmet on. That kid, that's unbelievable. And it's not as if it was just one game. He's been doing it all year with a lot of carries. He knows that the offense revolves around him, and he's still going out and literally putting his team on his back and defenders on his back to do what he has done.
You get an ice bath after a game like that, I think.
No doubt,
right?
Maybe two.
Beattie, the top rusher in the WPIAL. Couple of Menneson Greyhounds go over 200 yards as Davon Burke, 233, and Tyvon Kershaw goes for 212. Dom Donino of Kiski area, he's been a receiver, moves to the backfield. He puts up 166 yards rushing. And John Jablanovsky of Ligonier Valley, 155. The top receiver in the WPIAL from this past week was Xavier Nelson of Bishop Canevin, 5 receptions, 246 yards. Mr. Electricity, Aiden Hudog, the top receiver in Westmoreland County. He has 5 catches for 136. And Noah Sanders of Jeanette continues to put up monster numbers. He had the most receptions, or one of the top marks in terms of total catches heading into this week. He only had 2 on Saturday, but they spanned 131 yards for Noah Sanders. That'll do it for the top performers from week 5. We'll take a break, but when we come back, you have to stick around. It is the always popular plays of the week. And a little bit later, we're going to hear from Marko Thomas of GCC and Devin Beattie of Burrell. We'll also look ahead at the week 6 preview. But we'll take a break, come back. It'll be plays of the week as we roll along right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network and Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Right now at Smale Kia, take $500 off any in-stock or incoming 2023 Kia Soul or Forte, or lease a 2023 Kia Forte LXS for just $295 a month. A fair price all the time. At Smale Kia, you never have to worry about the ugly 3. No sly market adjustments, no creepy addendum, no fancy surcharges. Avoid the ugly 3 and be free. Shop Smale Kia, where you never pay more than MSRP.
When you're in pain or suffering from an injury, all you want is to get back on your feet, back to living your life. At East Suburban Sports Medicine Center, that's what we've done for 35 years. Our staff is skilled, experienced, and compassionate. Our facilities are modern and welcoming, and our focus is on you. So if you want to feel better, play better, and live better, call us today or visit one of our 6 offices.
East Suburban Sports Medicine. Take it from me, Bill Hillgrove. It's the best care, hands down.
All right, welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. It is our favorite part of each and every show. Wednesday, 7 p.m. If you don't know, by the way, you got to be tuning in at this portion every Wednesday because it is now time for the always popular Plays of the Week. And we begin Plays of the Week with Franklin Regional. As trailing at the half, the Panthers needed a spark, and Zach Bazuska provided it with the opening kickoff of the third quarter as his house call got Franklin Regional's rally started against Plum. The one and only Jonathan Whaley captions the pictures.
Mr. Electricity, Aiden Udock standing back inside the 10, right in the middle of the field. Will they kick it to him? Or will they try all points to avoid him? Salino will kick it high but short, and it will bounce out the 23 on the far side. Picked up, and he's breaking through the line. And he's through the line. That'll be down to the 40, to the 50. He's going down to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown. Zach Bazuska created a Zach attack from about, how about that start? About 78-yard kickoff return. He did it a year ago against Plum here at Panther Stadium, and it is the Zach attack that does it. Let's take a look. Gets it about that 18-yard line, and then he comes toward the middle of the field. Gets some blocking there, and now there's a huge gap at the 35. He runs past 1, 2, 3, 4 Plum defenders, and he's going to take it home. And the Panthers have made it a one-possession game. Here comes the extra point by Bain.
Sean, this is going to sound a little bit like coach speak, but, you know, we talk so much about Zach Bazuska, who made a really nice return there. We talk a lot about Aiden Hudock, but how about the blocking, right? I mean, you need to have great blocking up front in the wedge, they call it, of a return. And if you go back and watch the replay again of this play, Nate Chirizio, who I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, Nate, he takes the Plum kid and blocks him all the way to the sideline. He wasn't the only one that made a nice block, but I guarantee when they were watching film on Saturday morning, the coaches were doing some hoot and hollering over that because that was pretty sweet to see. But honestly, like, it makes it easier if you're one of those up men. It makes it easier to block knowing that any time those guys behind you could take one to the house. And certainly with that talent, I mean, it makes it easier. It makes you want to block for them because you know you can make a big play.
Yeah, and sometimes when I pick Plays of the Week, it is the most incredible type of play. Sometimes it's the most important play. I think this one, you look at it, it was a really incredible play, but it was so important because Franklin Regional was trailing. They needed something to get them back in it. We now see that they end up winning the game in close fashion. So a play like this, I think you don't have a kickoff return to start the second half. Maybe Franklin Regional ends up on the other end of it.
You turn to the Zach attack, baby.
Absolutely. We continue Plays of the Week with Greensburg-Salem and Cody Rubrick. We've said his name so many times. He's been spectacular all season for the Golden Lions. He produced another highlight reel run late in the second quarter against Mount Pleasant. It gave Greensburg-Salem a 1-point lead at the time. The triumphantly returning TJ DeStefano and John Bainbridge have the call.
Here's Rubrick going to keep it 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. It's a foot race, and nobody's going to catch Cody Rubrick as he is into the end zone. A 70-yard run, and Greensburg-Salem has it tied at 13 right now.
That was a beautiful misdirection play, faking the inside zone and running old counter tray, quarterback counter tray with the backside guard and tackle pulling for Greensburg-Salem. Payne and Riggs there led the way for Salem. And Rubrick has some speed.
Man, Cody Rubrick doing what he does. And that was a huge touchdown, Sean, right at the end of the first half there when things were certainly up in the air. And just another great athletic play by Cody Rubrick, man. And he has so much confidence in himself. I hope he's okay, and because he's so much fun to watch every Friday night.
Yeah, that's all about speed because once he gets in the open field, it's pretty safe to say people are not going to catch him. Absolutely. Well, we'll stay with that same easy. I know you're excited.
Sorry.
We'll stay with that same game and now look at it on the Mount Pleasant area side as it was the Vikings who ultimately prevailed thanks to an impressive second half. Lane Golkowski enjoyed a breakthrough performance on the ground, including his long touchdown run that put Mount Pleasant back in the lead just minutes into the third quarter, as detailed once again by TJ and John.
2nd down and 4 now for the Vikings. Operate of a pistol formation here. This is going to be Golkowski, takes up off the far sideline, cuts it to 20, 15, 10, 5, and into the end zone. Second touchdown by Golkowski.
And again, they ran jet to the field, that time back into the boundary, and little jet reverse pulling both guards for Mount Pleasant out there. Laychuk and Eicher laid tremendous blocks.
So a 42-yard touchdown by Golkowski. He had a 4-yard run to open the scoring for the Vikings in the first quarter.
Hey, this thing's still shaking. How about that touchdown run by Lane Golkowski? Man, huge. I'd mentioned Cody Rubrek scoring right before the end of the half to give Salem the 14-13 lead. And then just a couple minutes into the second half, Mount Pleasant answers back just like that. And Lane Golkowski making himself a little bit of a household name. Again, that dual threat in the backfield for Mount Pleasant really makes it tough on opposing defenses. Good to see them get back on track, too, after that loss to Freeport.
And this is what I was talking about, because if you watch that, you're telling people to go back and watch plays again. If you're going to watch that one again, look at the attention that Labuda gets. I think there was 4 or 5 defensive players who not only went towards him, but maybe even tried to put hits or tackle him. And so it creates more of an opportunity for a guy like Golkowski. He's not having to see 11 defenders. He's maybe seeing half as many because of the diversion that Labuda created. So
and I also love, Sean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I also love Coach Bainbridge, first year broadcasting with us here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. He is an offensive line coach. He will identify the guys that throw those big blocks after every, maybe even run, but every big run, certainly. So everyone always wants to talk about the skill position guys. Don't worry, hogs up front. Coach Bainbridge has your back.
Yeah, guys like Eicher that certainly deserve a lot of recognition, because they continue to do it each and every week, and often it does not go in terms of the box score. You're not going to see the name, but it does not go unnoticed amongst the people who really love and pay attention closely to the sport of football. Well, we'll continue plays of the week and wrap this one up with Penn Trafford, as the Warriors failed to get much going offensively early against Norwin, but they found their stride on the final drive of the first half, culminating with a touchdown pass from Connelly Green to Daniel Tarabrella with just seconds left, and it staked PT to a 14-0 advantage heading into the locker room. Myself and Dave Franzak provide the commentary.
Halasak's field goal last week was 32 yards.
Okay.
So
you're right in his range right now.
Yeah, this would be right around that, 34 specifically. Well, they are going to take a shot here. Thrown up, and Tarabrella comes down with it for a touchdown. 50-50 ball, and Tarabrella makes the play. Warriors up 13-0.
That was more of like a 60-40 ball. Steven Rogers had to really retreat to get back to coverage. Wasn't able to get back in time, and Tarabrella just climbs up over top and gets him. Catches the ball at the high point.
What a drive by Penn Trafford.
Hey, 50-50, 60-40. Dan Tarabrella's been making plays all season long. And Sean, I mean, he made all of his money on defense last year. But this year, he's been becoming such an important part of the offense, especially with some injuries like Jake Otto, who's been out, in terms of, the wide receiving core. And, of course, defensively, he still makes plays. But, man, that was such a big play in a game that, again, as we mentioned earlier, Norwin was right there at the end of the first half. But that, I don't know. I don't want to say it put the game away, because certainly there was a lot of time to go. It was only a 2-score game. But the way Norwin's been playing offensively, it kind of maybe felt that way.
Kenny Pickett comes into the game for the Steelers, and he starts throwing the ball down the field and giving his receivers a chance.
Yeah.
It didn't always pay off, but I think you love that type of mentality and the YOLO, throw it out there and let them make plays. I thought John Ruane was going to kind of play it safe and just say, let's get this field goal. We don't want to risk throwing the ball in the field of play and then running out of time. Well, they throw it up into the end zone and say, hey, go make a play. Tarabrella did. I think that changes the tenor of that game, because instead of going into the half maybe off of a field goal, which isn't even a guarantee now with without a guy like Schlesinger. You throw it up, Burrell gets the touchdown. All of a sudden, 14-0 turns into a 28-0 final. So
does Chase Claypool make that catch? Yes or no?
No offense to Norwin. I think at the high school level, he probably would come down with it. But if he's going against NFL guys, no.
Well, the defensive back for Norwin was probably just as tall as the defensive back that Claypool was, going up against. But I digress. We'll move forward.
Absolutely. Well, that will do it for Plays of the Week. Once again, our favorite segment each and every week. We'll take a break, and we'll come back and hear some really good interviews. Up next, it'll be Marko Thomas, the head coach of Greensburg Central Catholic, after his team's terrific victory against the Clairton Bears. That's up next as we continue right here on WSN's Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Coach, building a championship team, I know for you, it's all about the details. The same goes with the Bowsers.
No doubt about it. I mean, it's the tiny little details every single day, not forgetting about it the next day and maybe doing it the following day. I mean, I think details are everything.
As Coach says, get your eyes right on the power of Bowser.
The Bowser family is proud to have Coach Narduzzi as part of our team.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Meyers now joined by the second-year head coach at Greensburg Central Catholic, Marko Thomas. His team coming off of one of the biggest wins in many, many years for the Centurions as they defeat the Clairton Bears 34-18. Marko, first off, congratulations. I know that means a lot to you, and it means a lot to this program and all the players on your team. So what was the reaction like after that final whistle?
It was awesome. It was awesome. The kids have been working on this for a while. And just building up to the week, you could see them just gearing in and getting ready. And, they knew that they could do it. And I think after the first play of the game, you saw it in their eyes. They're like, all right, we're in this, we're ready to go. And then when the last second ticked off, it was awesome. It was great to see them celebrate. Tears of joy in some of them and some of their eyes, which was awesome. And it definitely made me proud as a coach.
Well, you mentioned that the players knew they could do it. How important was it that you were able to play very competitively against the Bears at their home a year ago? Now, you did come up short, but the fact that you were close, did that instill some confidence in these players already before Friday?
I think so. Playing them close last year definitely showed that we belonged. We had a couple of plays that we thought that, one or two plays here or there, that game might have been different last year. So we really believe that, that we could play with them. The tough thing is simulating their speed in practice, catching up to their speed in the game. It took us a few series to kind of adjust, but overall, I think they did a great job.
Well, I think a lot of teams struggle to simulate your speed nowadays because you have some athletic players, some terrifically skilled players, and now some experienced players as well, because a lot of the guys that you have at the key positions did contribute a year ago. So how important was it that guys like Tyree Turner got a lot of reps at quarterback last year? You have some returners at receiver like Amari Mack and Nate DeLugos, and even in your running back room as well with Jaden Kennedy. How important was it that they already have gone through the rigors of the season and now they're back for a second year?
No doubt it's important. They had a whole year under their belt. What we do is not sometimes the easiest stuff to do, especially in Tyree's position, making the reads the way that he has to. But after a year, he's definitely shown improvement. Every game, he gets better and better. And to have, running backs like Jaden and Dejan and receivers with Amari, Nate, Samir, guys that are in the right place that can make plays themselves. Sometimes, maybe Tyree's throwing a little off, but these guys make great catches. They make great adjustments. great cuts. And, it definitely helps to have, the athletes that we have out there to make some plays, because it's tough for defenses to adjust to that.
John Ruane obviously is a very accomplished head coach. And when he was talking about the success that Hempfield area has had this season, he pointed to it's such a massive difference when a coach is in his second year, because they've had to go through the struggles of the first year, getting all the stuff installed. The second year, usually the program takes some very significant strides. Have you felt that that's been the same case with you at GCC?
Yes. Yeah, no doubt about it. Getting everything installed last year was a big step. I thought we did well, and we got better towards the end of the year. And then I think just with that year under the belt, all those guys, you're not reteaching anything. You can actually add to it, get a little more creative with some of the things that you can do. So definitely having that year, the second year, we're definitely improving, and it makes it a little easier for us to move and get a little more creative.
Well, we've talked so much about some of the guys who were contributors a year ago who are back. And one guy that you did mention who is a first-year player, a freshman, is Samir Crosby. And Dan Flickinger, my colleague, saw the game at Bishop Canevin, and he said, this kid is unbelievably good for a freshman. What makes him so good at such a young age?
He is extremely competitive. Everything he does in practice, he's 100%. Like, he hates when people don't go 100%. He's going to be a great leader in the future. He already is. He's stepping up. We ask him to do a lot of stuff. He's our leading tackler on defense. He's our leading receiver right now on offense. He throws the ball. He runs the ball. He's returning kickoffs. The kid can do anything, and it's basically because he wants to. He does not want to come off the field. You could see him take a shot here and there and start limping off. You can't pull him off the field. He's just a great competitor.
You've played some really difficult opponents so far this season. You started out playing much larger schools like Mount Pleasant. We talked about it, Bishop Canevin, the defending 1A champions, even Washington, which is, a 700-win program. It seems like for most of those games, the offense was there, but at times maybe the defense wasn't as good as you needed it to be. So what maybe changed against Clairton that allowed you to hold them to under 20?
I think we got a little more healthier. We had a couple guys coming back. Nick DeLugo's coming back the last couple of weeks has been huge. Ethan Shawley too, as at the linebacker spot. I think we're just starting to get healthy. We had some people recently. We've been moving Jaden Kennedy down to DN because we just needed help there. So he was able to go back to his free safety spot this week. It helped us defensively become a little faster as well. So definitely getting a little healthier.
Talking to Marko Thomas, head coach of Greensburg Central Catholic, on the heels of their big win against Clairton. So coaches will set goals before a season, but most of the time they always talk about the next game up 1 week at a time. Now that you've knocked off what I think most people consider as the favorite in the conference, do you reevaluate and maybe change those goals?
No, our goals have been the state champs from day one. If you listen to any of our breakdowns, that's what our team breaks it down on. I'm a firm believer if you set the goals high, you can achieve them. You set them low, that's where you're going. So we set our goals high. We're not going to change. I think the schedule that we had at the beginning of the year made us stronger, made us more competitive because, we're playing the tougher teams. We didn't blow anybody out, but we didn't get blown out either, so I think our kids really believe what's going on right now. And our goal now is win the section, then get through the playoffs.
I know that Greensburg Central Catholic and Jeanette has always been a rivalry, and it seemed like for a long time, Jeanette and Clairton was the biggest rivalry in the Eastern Conference. Are you starting to get the sense that maybe GCC and Clairton's heading that way? Is it kind of is it a little bit of a hostile environment when you guys go against one another?
It's just good football. You know what I mean? They are the kings, and they will be until somebody can knock them off a few times. You know what I mean? Because Clairton, you're always going to get a Clairton team. They're going to be big, strong, physical, and those are the kind of games you like. Even like when we lost last year, it was a great game to be a part of. And Jeanette, you're going to get the same thing. So what that they might have been down last year, they're on their way up again. And it's going to be, when we play Jeanette, it's throw the records out. The kids, they all want it, both sides, and it should be good football.
Well, you mentioned Jeanette on the horizon, but next up it's the Fraser Commodores. And I know that there's obviously the concern that there might be a letdown after a win like this. As a coach, how do you make sure that does not happen in your next game?
You got to harp on it. Come Monday, we're not going to treat Monday like any other Monday. It's not going to be different. We're not going to say, this should be a win. No, it's going to be the way that we practice every week. So we keep things the same. We keep it on schedule and regular, and hopefully we come out and perform right off the bat like we've been.
It's funny you say that because you keep things on schedule, and yet the schedule provides a little bit of a quirk. And I know when you play 1A football, usually you're going to play some Saturday afternoon games. That's just the reality of it. That's often the case in this conference with a team like Riverview that does not have light. So if you head to Oakmont, you're playing Saturday afternoons. That's expected. But a Thursday game at Frazier is not very common. So what the reason behind that, and how do you make those adjustments?
That's what we said. We're playing a max schedule this year. So whenever we can get out there, we'll do it. I guess it came about at the end of the summer. They had called our AD Dan Honey and said that they were struggling getting refs for Friday night, and that might be a possibility of playing Thursday night. And a couple of days later, we just settled on Thursday night. So.
I believe about a decade ago, maybe less than that, there was always a big time Thursday night game that was televised in the WPIAL. I think that was probably different reasons back then why they did that. But so ultimately you have a chance to continue this winning streak a little bit. You mentioned state championship is the end goal. How do you get from where you're at now to there?
We just got to keep on improving, especially, we played a good game Friday night, but we still made a lot of mistakes. If we go back and watch the film, there's things that we could have done better. And that's what we're going to harp on from here on out, just getting better, especially offensively, defensively. In the second half, I thought we played a lot better defensively. We were aligned properly. We were getting downhill, getting to the ball, rallying to the ball, which, is going to make us better in the long run. But again, we can't expect to go out and score 50 points every game. We got to be able to, grind them out here, especially when we get down to the playoff time. So we got to be ready. And I believe we're battle tested. We played some really good teams so far.
Well, lastly, I've talked to a lot of championship winning coaches many times years after they've won a championship. And I always ask them what stood out, what was special about that team. And they usually have something that immediately comes to mind. Might be a lot harder for you in season, but when you think about this year's version, what do you think maybe is special about this team?
I think, with the amount of quote unquote stars that we have, we don't have a selfish player. And I think that's going a long way to help build this team concept. A lot of times you get your top-notch kids that, they're me guys that want the ball and, they pout when they don't get the ball. You're not seeing that. You're not seeing that. I'm not getting that from a single player. They're enjoying the ride right now. They're celebrating with each other. Jaden scores are all celebrating. Amari scores are all celebrating. Nate scored. They're all on board with it. And I think that's what's setting us apart right now.
Well, Marko, once again, congratulations on the big victory against the Bears, and make sure you keep it up the rest of the way.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's Marko Thomas, head coach of Greensburg Central Catholic. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with more right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Your next golf adventure awaits at Manor Valley Golf Course in Export. Manor Valley offers 18 scenic holes over gentle sloping fairways and the purest putting surfaces around. Manor Valley Golf Course in Export is the perfect place to host your next golf outing, banquet party, or shower. Manor Valley also offers league play and great membership rates. Tee times available. Call 724-744-4242. Visit ManorValleyGC.com.
The Collision Shop by Jason Mignone is your one-stop shop for all things auto body repair. Our experienced technicians and state-of-the-art facilities have you covered on both passenger and heavy-duty vehicle repairs, including scratches, scrapes, and dents, free estimates, body repairs, welding, refinishing, glass replacement, and more. Our all-new alignment and calibration shop has the tooling, equipment, and staffing to ensure top-quality alignment and calibration adjustments for your vehicle. Our friendly office staff is more than happy to assist you through every step of your vehicle's repair process. Visit the Collision Shop by Jason.com for our complete list of services.
We roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron, Sean and Dan, and we thank Marko Thomas, a guy who Even after a loss, he kind of just has that natural smile about him, but I don't think anyone could blame him for smiling from ear to ear after knocking off the Clareton Bears. And man, the thing that really stuck with me is he said every single skill guy, we talked about all of them, they don't care about the stats. They care about the W's.
Yeah, and you can see that because they use so many of them in terms of getting them, the football. They spread it out is what I'm trying to say. I mean, Jaden Kennedy, just one of the many weapons that they have. Samir Crosby, obviously Tyree Turner has to get the ball to all those guys. But they obviously are unselfish, and you can see that they just want to win. And again, some of these kids like Kennedy were on a Jeanette team that won a WPIAL championship and played in a state title game, so they know how to win. And I think it showed on Friday.
Flick, you and I go to these training camps, and sometimes it's the very first week that the team is officially together for Heat Week. We go to GCC, and I think it was maybe the first day that we went there, right? I think we did Salem and then GCC.
And GCC the same day, yep. First day.
Very first day. Do you remember what they broke the huddle with?
State championship or PIAA championship, yeah. Yeah,
that has been their goal. And
they're not afraid to admit it, right? I mean, they're breaking on that. That
could blow up in their face, but I don't think that they are worried about that. They're only thinking about that as the end result. And so they have a long, long way to go. And yet you feel like after a win like what they had this past week, it's within the realm of possibility. So confidence without being cocky. I think that's the important thing. And you get that from their head coach too, right? Marko's a guy that I think he's very confident, but not cocky.
And another thing I remember from that day was Ryan Kimmel talking to us while they were doing drills. He would do his drill, go to the back of the line and talk to us while he waited to go into the next drill. I thought Dan Mahoney was going to yell at us. He didn't, but
yeah. Well, you've already tried to put on your coaching hat earlier and say this coach speak. So you're basically like a coach to Kimmel at this point, I would say.
Yeah, sure. But another Jeanette guy that's been there, done that, knows how to win and all those things. So
absolutely. Well, we appreciate Marko taking the time. That was just one interview. We're going to have another one upcoming momentarily, and it is a well-deserving Burrell Buccaneer. And Flick, this was a race that came down to the wire in terms of voting this week to determine our player of the week.
No doubt about it. We had over 2,100 votes this week. Devin had 700. This is maybe lucky. He should go to the casino, even though he's not old enough yet. 777 votes. How about that for Devin Beattie? 33 carries, again, 302 yards, 6 touchdowns. You're going to see some different numbers, by the way, for yardage. I went with what Burrell had on Max Prep. So that's what the Burrell statistician had. So that's what we went with. I've seen some numbers that were under 300, but that's what they had. But Lane Golkowski had 728 votes. So that's how close it was, 36.3% to 34% this week. So that's really cool that people are getting out to vote. Aiden Hudock, another candidate this week, 5 passes, 136 yards, the touchdown, but also he had a big punt return in that game that set up a touchdown for Franklin Regional. And of course, Tyree Turner getting the ball to all those skilled guys, 10 for 14, 246 and 2 touchdowns. He was a huge reason that GCC was able to knock off Clareton. So congratulations to not just Devin, but to all of the nominees. And again, I'm sure we still have some weeks to go. We'll probably see Lane in there again, Tyree and Aiden. So those guys should be very proud of what they were able to accomplish. But Devin Beattie wins our player of the week this week, and very well deserved.
And his reward is to talk to one Dan Flickinger.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a reward, Sean, but
a punishment, whatever you want to call it.
Through it. Yeah, we're going to put him through it.
Nonetheless, we're going to hear from Devin Beattie of the Burrell Buccaneers after a quick break. And when we come back a little bit later on, we'll also have the Week 6 preview. But don't go anywhere. Our special Player of the Week interview next, as Dan and Devin will talk right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Have you or someone you know committed to play a sport at the next level? Let us know by emailing info@westmorelandsports.com so we can add you to our WSN College Commitment page. Our unique page features a list of current Westmoreland County student athletes that have made a verbal or written commitment to play a sport in college. No matter what sport at what level, our College Commitment page has you covered. Check it out next time you visit westmorelandsports.com.
And we welcome you back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron here on the Westmoreland Sports Network every Wednesday night. And it is time to talk with our Week 5 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. I think he's finally recovered from that big workload. Devin Beattie, junior running back for the Burrell Bucks. And man, what a game he had last week against Amani Christian. 35 carries, 304 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Devin, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule and joining us here tonight.
Thank you for having me here.
So, Devin, I have to ask you, have you ever had a game like that before? Growing up playing football, you tote the rock that many times, and you score 6 touchdowns, 2 more than Al Bundy, by the way. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but have you had a game like that before?
Honestly, not really. I mean, when I played little, I didn't even play too much, to be honest with you. But when I got to middle school, I started having better games, but not a game like Monty Christian now.
So why do you think so? Again, growing up, maybe you didn't play as much, but you really obviously are the cornerstone of the offense right now. What do you think changed? Growing up, just maturing a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's matured is what happened.
So after you carry the ball again 35 times, how do you feel physically? I mean, did it take you a little bit to recover from Friday's game?
Definitely my ankles and my knees hurt really bad after, but I mean, it was all right. I mean, I got up on Saturday, did film in the morning, got up for that, went home, slept the rest of the day. After that, I felt pretty good.
Other than sleeping, I mean, do you go see the trainer just for a little bit of work?
I get ice and all that. Yeah. Go in the morning, get ice for 20, 30 minutes and had film and ice after that too. And then went home and slept. So, yeah.
Yeah, you definitely deserve that. That's for sure. So tell us a little bit about what was clicking on the ground. And I know it's been clicking for you guys all season, particularly for you, but what was really going well for you against Amani Christian ground-wise?
The first offense play of the game, I mean, we had a touchdown. It was an open hole. I mean, anybody could run through it. It was a huge hole. Like I saw a hole and I just took off with it. I mean, blocking was really good that play.
So you talked about that play, and then obviously the team had to really count on you to grind out yards throughout the rest of the game. Was there anything specific other than the blocking up front that worked so well for you?
I mean, honestly, like it was blocks and there's holes. I mean, like there was holes almost every play I got the ball. There's a hole there for me to go through. I mean, I can't complain about that. So I mean,
and it's interesting too, Devin, because like other teams know what you guys are going to do. I mean, you rarely pass the ball, you keep the ball on the ground and you pound. But why do you think that the defenses can't stop you despite the fact that they know what you're going to do?
Our team's really tough. I mean, every single play they're hard off the ball. I mean, even if they're hurt and they still play, they're not coming out of the game because everyone wants to play. Everyone wants to win. I mean, that's how all of our team is. Everyone's tough and everyone's going to play.
Well, when you get that many carries on offense, I know that defensively you're not out there a whole lot. But talk a little bit about maybe shoring up that side of the ball. Is that something the coaches really have been working with you guys, averaging 22 points per game against? I'm sure you'd like to narrow that number down a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, our defense right now, I mean, we game plan and I think they do a decent job at it. I mean, like Amani Christian, we didn't really have much leaks in the defense. We had big plays, and that's how they scored.
Yeah, and same against Sarah Catholic, right? I mean, that game was kind of similar, right?
Yeah, the first half they had 2 big plays, and that's how they scored. They only had, I think, like 8 plays maybe on offense the whole first half.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, I mean, you guys put some big drives together, and then they'd hit you with a big play. So like compare this year to maybe some past. I know you're a junior, so you haven't, been playing varsity football for a long time, but Is there a lot more confidence this year right now with this team?
I'd say there's a lot more confidence this year. Last year, it was kind of everyone's like their morale wasn't really there that much. I mean, everyone wanted to win, but it just no one seemed to like be too much into it. I mean, like we were tough last year, but this year we're coming out and seemed to be a lot tougher than we were last year.
And you guys are 5-1. That only lost to Sarah Catholic, and you gave them, all that they could handle for sure. What is it like being on a team that's 5-1 and playing in a big game on Friday at home against Ligonier?
I mean, everyone's excited for it. Everyone's been looking forward to it for the past couple of practices. Everyone's excited for the game. I mean, it's a big game.
Do you feel the culture changing a little bit with the excitement around the program, even the community? Being at the games and that type of thing with your start this year?
It's everyone wants to go to the games now. We're winning, so everyone wants to go to the games, which is going to make it more fun of a game on Friday. I mean, it's a homecoming game. Going to be a lot of people there, and we're excited to play for it.
I was going to say, you probably feed off the crowd this year, don't you?
Yeah.
Talking with Devin Beattie, our Week 5 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. He is from the Burrell Bucks. Devin, what is the best qualities of Coach Sean Liotta, would you say?
He brings the whole team together. I mean, he does what a head coach does. He makes sure everybody's in line. He explains everything very, very in depth. He makes sure everybody knows their assignments, and that's how we play. Everyone gets their assignments and play as hard as we can.
Have you read his book?
No, not yet, honestly.
Not yet. So that's not a requirement. He doesn't make everyone read his book.
Not yet.
Not yet. And it's interesting too, because I know he likes to open it up, but with the personnel that you guys have and with you doing the great things you are, I mean, you run the football, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what your best quality is as a running back. What would you say your best quality is as a football player?
I mean, I'd say it's the fact that all of us have, I've played with almost everybody on the team. We all have chemistry together. And I mean, when I can sit there and pick someone out for if they miss a play, they take it and then they improve by it. Like we all just have such chemistry because we've played since we were little all together.
Yeah, and that certainly lends to leadership as well, I think, on the team. What do you like most about playing football?
Winning. Not much more than that, just winning. It's fun. Right. I mean, there's a bond between everybody once you're on that team. You make so much friends just from football. I mean, everyone on that team knows everybody, and a lot of us are super close too.
What are some of the things that you do when you're not carrying the ball 35 times? Like, what do you do when you're not on the practice field or in the classroom to kind of relax a little bit?
Hang out with my friends from the team.
What do you guys like to do? Video games, go out,
go swimming. I mean, right now it's in the hot tub because everyone's all sore. So I mean, get in the hot tub for an hour or so, and we hang out and stuff. I mean, just hang out on the weekends and all that. That's basically what we do.
So Ligonier Valley comes to Burrell again. You mentioned homecoming. There's so much excitement for this game, but X's and O's wise, Devin, can you kind of tell us what Ligonier likes to do on defense? What do you guys have to do on offense to come away with a win?
I mean, they resemble us almost. I mean, they have a wing T offense, I think it's called, and it's very similar to ours. I mean, they're definitely be a tough team. Also, it's going to be a good game.
What do you think you guys have to do well to win it?
Keep the ball in our hands. Don't fumble, and just play tough like how we do.
Now, I asked you about Coach Sean Liotta, but your favorite coach is Marky K, right? Marko Sonowitz. Yeah. I got to give him a shout out because he does some wrestling stuff with us. So I don't know if he's your favorite coach or not, but let's just say that he is.
All right.
We'll give him what's his best quality as an assistant coach?
He makes friends with everybody. Everybody loves him. I mean, there's no one that doesn't like him. It's everybody loves him because he gets in depth with the drills. Like he does some of the drills with us, and that's what we want in a coach, and that's what he does.
He's a good dude, man. He's a good dude. Well, you're a good dude too, Devin. Great running back, man. Congratulations on all your success. Let me ask you one final thing. Is football something you'd like to play in college?
Yeah, for sure.
Any idea where you'd like to go, or is that still kind of up? You're a junior, so
it's all up in the air. I mean,
any idea on a major?
Maybe go into business major and then figure out from there.
All right. Well, you have some time, man. I won't put you on the spot. I'll ask you again next year on our next interview. Okay.
All right.
All right. Devin, thank you so much again. Good luck against Ligonier.
Thank you.
That is Devin Beattie of the Burrell Bucks. Coming up next, we will continue live on Westmoreland on the Gridiron and preview Week 6 games, including Burrell and Ligonier, right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network.
Now is the time to save at Sendell Subaru in Greensburg. We've got inventory on the lot and more on the way. Forester, Outback, Ascent, Legacy, and more. Get a great deal on a new 2022 Subaru. Check out SendellSubaru.com today. Looking to turn your current vehicle into cash? Sendell pays top dollar. Get your best deal at Sendell Subaru, Route 30 Greensburg, SendellSubaru.com. We would love to meet you.
If you had to file an insurance claim, would your insurance coverage score a touchdown, or would you be sacked for a financial loss? At Stevenson Insurance Associates, you'll call the right play when it comes to your insurance coverage. Don't fumble the opportunity to score points with our customer service and superior low-cost policies. You need to make the right call to Stevenson Insurance Associates at 724-832-9889.
We continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We thank Devin Beattie of the Burrell Buccaneers for taking the time out of his busy schedule to talk to Dan Flickinger. And speaking of which, Flick, we're going to get to all the games momentarily, but very excited that we're going to get to see Devin up close and personal this Friday.
Yeah, really excited. We try to cover everybody that we possibly can, obviously, in Westmoreland County, and whether that's live broadcast, or whether that's written content, whether that's, players winning player of the week. We certainly want to involve every possible school in the county as much as we possibly can. But we were really excited this week to be able to put together this broadcast. Burrell and Ligonier Valley, two Westmoreland County schools. Burrell obviously having a great season. They've been seeing an uptick, I know, in their media coverage. And Ligonier Valley really has been a staple of consistency and success under Roger Beidel. Since they've moved to the WPL, they've been very competitive. So I'm really excited for this game. Maybe a little bit of a contrast in styles. Ligonier, I know they like to run it, certainly, but maybe throw it a little bit more than obviously Burrell throws it maybe once a game. So it should really be interesting, and I think we'll have a great atmosphere for the game. And hey, I mean, this is a big game for both teams trying to lock up down the road a potential playoff spot.
Absolutely. So very excited about that one. We're going to have a number of broadcasts, either video or audio. Before we get into the Friday games, tomorrow, a rare Thursday night game, Greensburg Central Catholic at Fraser. I asked Marko about it, but again, it's worth repeating. Years ago, they had those big time showdowns on Thursday. That's not really the case here, to be honest. Fraser has struggled quite a bit. GCC, though, you have to figure out a way to make the schedule work. So they will be playing at Fraser to get this week kicked off tomorrow, Thursday at 7:00.
Sean, I think I told you this before, but I remember when they used to have the Thursday night game of the week. I don't know if it was on AT&T Sportsnet or whatever it was called back then, or if it was on UPN, The Point, whatever. But the Penguins were playing that night as well, regular season game. So they couldn't show the football game live. They had to show it after the Penguins. And we were video streaming it from Franklin Regional. So it was literally the only game of the night on a Thursday. It wasn't live on TV. Guess where it was live? Jonathan Whaley will tell you. Who was
Franklin Regional playing?
It was Gateway, I believe. I think it was Franklin Gateway.
I covered one at Jeanette, and I want to say it was GCC in Jeanette, actually.
Yeah, there were. You know what? Who it might have been? Jeanette and Washington. I remember played on a Thursday night when they had Shy McKenzie. If you remember McKenzie.
Went to Virginia Tech, and things did not work out.
Well, it didn't work out for him there. But I even had the quote ready to go if Jeanette would have won that game, because actually I think Shy McKenzie was hurt, if I remember right. And I was going to say that Washington came up just shy, but I think they won by 3 touchdowns or something like that. So anyway, where did this spiral out of control?
Sometimes,
Thursday night game, GCC and Fraser. Right. Yeah, they'll play. So
yeah,
there you go.
Well, let's get to the Friday games because there's a lot to get to. Franklin Regional at Norwin. again, this is one that we're going to have on video. You think Franklin Regional should win, but you never know because it's the 5A Big East, and the Knights, they have really, really struggled to score. They're trying to figure out what to do at the quarterback position. They've had some injuries on the offensive line. One thing I can say, seeing them firsthand, they will get after it the entire way on defense. And maybe if it comes down to special teams, we said how good FR is, but Joey Castle, he just made his college commitment. Mm-hmm. Maybe with that load off of his chest, then he can get back to just booming some perfect punts and coming through on kickoffs and field goals as well. So we'll see if the Knights are able to maybe pull off a little bit of a stunner. At this point, nothing in 5A would surprise me. And Ligonier Valley at Burrell. We mentioned.
I can jump on you, Sean, here just for a second. A little bit of a spoiler. Our recruiting Thursday interview tomorrow will be with Mr. Castle. Jack Ridenauer had a chance to talk with him, so you'll see that interview posted up on our website tomorrow. He committed to Akron, and so that should be interesting. He's a good kid. We had a chance to follow him around a little bit at Norwin training camp. I was trying to get videos of him punting and kicking and all that, and he was just like punting to nobody just so I could get some video of him.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We appreciate that. Absolutely. So that will be a video game. Ligonier Valley at Burrell, we mentioned, will be a video game and a very competitive 2A conference, and that should be a good showdown as well. Leechburg at Jeanette. Man, the Blue Devils have been playing some really good football. They came up just shy against Clairton, but that's a good Blue Devils team. Braylon Lovelace, the future Pitt Panther, is their star. So it's going to be a tough test for Jeanette. But the Jayhawks, they clearly have taken some steps forward from a tough 2021. They are much improved here in 2022. We mentioned this one before. Non-conference Hempfield area tries to get back at it and get their winning ways back on track. It will not be easy as they will host a very good 6A team in the Seneca Valley Raiders and Derry area. Man, this is going to be a tough one for the Trojans looking for their first win. They are hosting a Steel Valley team that, man, has been about as good as any team in 2A so far this year.
And look what Steel Valley did to Ligonier Valley at Ligonier Valley, which never happens.
Yeah, they are just a dominant program. A lot of people thought maybe they would go the whole way last year, if not for a untimely injury, but they might be the favorites again here in 2022. Other games across Westmoreland County, and this one's a big one, but I want to kind of give you a chance to explain it. Penn Trafford at Gateway. And we thought maybe this would be one we would broadcast, but ultimately there's some good reasons why we're not going to be bringing the action.
Yeah, the game is on TV. It's being televised live. And, even though Gateway has a big press box, there is limited space up top at Gateway where the windows open, where you can set up cameras. And I know Gateway has had its sports network all year. I'm sure they're going to be there as well. It will be a little more difficult for us to be able to do a video broadcast. Audio doesn't really make sense because, again, people want to watch the game, and that's totally fine. They want to watch it on TV. So if it was a home game at Penn Trafford, maybe we would be broadcasting it if it wasn't on TV, that type of thing. But we felt that, hey, let's give Burrell and Ligonier Valley a spotlight this week. Let's include them because I think that game is going to be great. So, I'm assuming that PT Gateway, as always, will be a good game. We'll see. Again, anything can happen in that. That's right, the John Ruane Bowl. Anything can happen in that conference, certainly. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think it'll be a big challenge for Penn Trafford. Just from what I saw from Gateway last week, I mean, they're playing some type of special football after that win against Hempfield.
Greater Latrobe will try to get its first home victory of the season at Memorial Stadium as the Wildcats will host a really, really struggling Ringgold team that I think has scored just 3 touchdowns all season to this point. Kiski area looking for its first win overall. It will be playing at Mars area. Remember, Eric Kasparovich now guiding the Fighting Planets. Bell Vernon area at Greensburg-Salem. Good Westmoreland County matchup. Yeah, the Leopards are going to be favored, but again, Greensburg-Salem has a puncher's chance anytime that you can put Cody Ruprecht out on the field. But I do think Matt Humbert's team starting to round into form at the right time of year. Mount Pleasant at Elizabeth Forward. Vikings have been really, really good, and yet you feel like they're going to be heavy underdogs going on the road to play Coach Colodey's EF squad. It really does truly feel like EF and Bell Vernon is going to ultimately determine. And yet, if you're another one of these teams, if you're Greensburg-Salem, if you're Mount Pleasant, you say, hey, let's put a wrinkle in everyone's plans that's, sort of already ordained that matchup between the Leopards and EF is the conference championship. So 2 opportunities, Greensburg-Salem and Mount Pleasant, both trying to play a little bit of spoiler. And remember, it's still really early in that conference, just 1 week in. So a lot still to be determined.
And certainly Mount Pleasant coming in with a chip on its shoulder. They lost to Elizabeth Forward 35-0 last year. So, you
go back a couple years and remember it was a close game. I think it was a 2-point win for Elizabeth Forward at Mount Pleasant. So they've become sort of rivals, I would say, over the past couple of years. EF has gotten the better of it. And yet Mount Pleasant is still a team that they won a playoff game a year ago. They're awfully close to getting to that next level. They probably need to win a game like this to have that trademark win. GCC just got one against Clairton. Can Mount Pleasant or can Greensburg-Salem do it this week against the real heavyweights in that conference?
Sean, you are good. 16-14 was the final score 2 years ago in favor of EF.
Yep, absolutely. By the way,
the weather was that night.
Hannah Mears got a phone call, or maybe not a phone call, a text message from Charlie Batch that
night. That's right.
Yeah, because Vern Settles was on EF at the time. He's now a great player for Pittsburgh Central Catholic. And I think he was a freshman and was maybe struggling a little bit. And Charlie said, hey, go easy on Vern. He's a youngster. He's got better days ahead of him. But he still got the victory that night for Elizabeth Ford.
Have you ever gotten a text message from Charlie Batch?
I have not. Not a single one.
So not popular enough.
Other game in that interstate conference, Southmoreland at South Allegheny. In the other conference in 3A that involves Westmoreland County play, the Valley Vikings will be home against Deer Lakes. In 2A, York at Sarah Catholic, the Eagles look just as dominant as they did a year ago when they won the 2A championship. Monessen, trying to keep up their winning ways, will be at Carmichael's to play against the Mighty Mikes. And collegiately, a couple of Saturday games, one that we will be doing a video broadcast of as Clarion comes to Greensburg to play at Seton Hill. It feels like we've hardly ever been at Offutt Field this year for Seton Hill football, but maybe some home cooking will do the Griffins well. This is a game, no doubt, 4:00 video broadcast. They have to win this game.
No doubt about it. And you said home cooking, it's homecoming as well. So that was a good mesh. But they took care of business big time against Clarion last year. It's honestly amazing how much the quarterback position is hurting. And I mentioned this last week too. Seton Hill. I mean, their defense is still playing pretty well. Now, last week, again, I don't know. I didn't watch, a lot of the game. We were doing volleyball, but, last week they hit a big touchdown pass. Seton Hill did, I think, to go up 10-7. And then the defense did give up some touchdowns. And whether they were tired, whatever, I don't know. But still, 10 points is just not enough. You got to have more than that. And it's just a shame how poor the offense has played because, again, the defense has been pretty solid this year throughout the season.
Yeah, but, they gave up just 21 points last week. It wasn't like they got torched, but against a team in Clarion that has really struggled, you say, hey, offense, let's get it going. Defense, let's get it going. And see, you get both working in harmony, then maybe Seton Hill comes back to the 2021 team that we saw win 5 games. So Dan Day, certainly, I'm sure the message is let's treat this as one game at a time. Let's get that first win and then see if we can build off of that. Other college game on Saturday, and I'll take credit for blunder. I said this one last week. I'm going to say it again. St. Vincent at Case Western Reserve at 1:00. Why did I say it last week? Well, I did not realize that St. Vincent actually had a bye week. They had an open week. So I saw that as the next game up. Mistakenly thought it was last week. They sat around and did nothing last week. No games. They did not play Case Western last week. They will play them this week. I can say that with confidence. So the Bearcats looking to get back in the win column after a little bit of a reprieve a week ago. That'll do it for the Week 6 games. But, Flick, not only do we have all those video and audio broadcasts that we highlighted between Friday and Saturday, but we got plenty more each and every night on WSN.
We sure do, Sean. I'm glad you mentioned that. But I mentioned Joey Castle recruiting Thursday. We have that for you every week. We're actually getting kind of backlogged right now because there's a lot of different commitments coming down the pike right now, not just for football players, certainly, but softball players. We have a couple of commitments we're working on right now, doing some interviews. And I said to Jack Ridenauer, we may have to double up one of these weeks and just shoot out 2 recruiting Thursday video interviews to be able to get the student athletes in. But have that for you every Thursday. Sean does a great job of providing some a great preview of every single Westmoreland County game with a breakdown of the teams and what they've done in the past couple of weeks coming into the game and what we can expect from them and the broadcast links. So check out our preview every.
And I'll
Friday.
tell you one thing that's driving me crazy. So I mentioned.
You're going to mention the stats again?
No, not that. Something else. So they do the realignment every 2 years, and so some of the teams that play each other are very familiar. They play year in and year out, but there's other teams that have not played in a long time. And with the realignment, I try to go back and find the most recent meeting. So every 2 years with realignment, you'll get matchups that haven't taken place in 15, 20, 30 years.
Right.
And so I go back and I look through each and every year, and the Post-Gazette goes back to 2003.
Yes.
And so that takes legitimately about 10 to 15 minutes that I go back and look. And so many times I find, man, these teams have not met in 20 plus years.
Or you'll find a random non-conference game in 2004. That's the last time they met.
Next year, it will be a lot easier because I'll just have to reference the matchup this year. So it is one of those things where I wish realignment was every 4 years instead of every 2 years. It makes me go back and dig through all these. But I don't mind doing it because it's always interesting to see, man, these teams haven't played since 2007 and they met in the playoffs and stuff like that. So that is something I try to do each and every week when I look at the weekly preview is the previous meeting. So hopefully people appreciate my tireless effort to dig back through the archives.
You're grinding.
Absolutely. By the way, we mentioned it briefly. Justin Huss this week featured on our Westmoreland alum Q&A. He's unfortunately coming off of an injury recently, but what a great career he had at Dairy Area. His senior year was an epic one. He's been really good for W&J as well, so enjoyed hearing from him. And not only that, but we do have some soccer broadcasts all throughout the week. We had a thriller earlier this week, Greta Latrobe knocking off Plum in overtime. And then, so each and every week we try to get not just football in there on Fridays and Saturdays, but we try to cover all the other sports. We also have a lot of golf recently, and that's because the senior standout for the Trojans, Hunter Jerica, did it again. Congratulations to him, a WPIAL Class AA champ, now representing Dairy Area.
Yeah, I thought it was cool, Sean, that Jerica was not only did I get to win a championship, I got to play at Oakmont. He's like, I don't know which one's cooler. So I thought that was pretty funny. I'd love to play at Oakmont, but there is no way I could post even close to as good of a score as Hunter did.
I could walk to Oakmont if I really wanted.
Well, that's true. You could. Yeah.
I don't think they'd let me in, but probably I could technically. I could at least stand outside. Actually, real quick, I do want to tell about 4 or 5 years ago, Brady Pavarnik and Palmer Jackson were playing there. Neither one of them won at Oakmont, but I did get to go cover it for the Latrobe Bulletin at the time. And I think maybe Brady was runner-up or something, but that was a really, really cool experience to get and go watch that one at Oakmont Country Club because, man, that's a dream come true. I was there when they had the tournament in 2016. But for these golfers, high school players to play there, and for Hunter to win a championship there, that is a memory he will never, never forget. Well, enough about golf. We have covered it all here on this edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Westmoreland on the links.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe future years. Nonetheless, thank you so much for tuning in. We got to a lot this week. You have to come back next week. We're going to have even more to talk about. We're going to have great interviews as we do each and every week. And we want to thank our guests this week, Marko Thomas of Greensburg Central Catholic, the head man, and our player of the week, Devin Beattie for the Burrell Buccaneers. But for now, we'll put a bow on this one. For Dan Flickinger, Sean Meyers saying thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you again right here next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. It will be Westmoreland on the Gridiron.